Well, this one is always a bit tough. Alien 3 did have a troubled production history, with David Fincher even disowning the film, which was his first feature film at this point. It followed the major critical and commercial hits of Alien and Aliens by the acclaimed directors Ridley Scott and James Cameron, so it wouldn't have been easy for anyone to follow this up. I think Fincher tried his best, but in the end we just have a movie with two cuts with none of them feeling complete. I have seen the assembly cut a couple of times now, and that was also the version I watched the last time, and which I will review here. Alien 3 picks up where Aliens has left off. Ripley, Newt and Hicks are in hypersleep when suddenly a facehugger appears and causes a malfunction on the Sulaco. The ship is crash landing on a prison planet and Ripley is the only survivor of the ship crash. Once she wakes up, she is treated for her injuries and wants the prison doctor to perform an autopsy on Newt and Hicks. Newt's autopsy we see in more detail, and that's how we deal with the beloved characters from the previous movie. I guess the cat died too. Of course the alien soon appears on this planet as well, either through an ox in the assembly cut or a dog in the theatrical version. Soon the killing starts in the prison as well, and Ripley has to fight off the prisoners at first as well, but once they have a bigger enemy to fight they work together. Well, mostly, and try to capture and kill the monster. Alien 3 is basically the definition of a mixed bag. It offers some of the most iconic scenes in the series, but is also pretty unpleasant at times. Kills off major characters from the previous movie immediately and has some serious pacing issues. The directing overall is quite good for the most part. The effects are dated at times, but look charming in most of these scenes. There are some effects that also hold up pretty well though. The acting is quite good and there are a lot of English actors in the cast as well, like Charles Dance and Pete Postlethwaite. It's all pretty one note though. Everything is serious, depressing and grim. We don't have a pleasant character, a funny guy or anything like that. Even the more positive characters always talk about their dark past and stuff like that. There are also relationships that are rushed, like Ripley and the Doctor, who are just together after a couple of conversations and then he is quickly killed off. The cast is also rather big, and if you don't already know the actors, it can be tough to differentiate them due to their similar look and because they are not that well established at times. We often see just a group of bald middle-aged men, but we also do see Fincher regular Holt McCallany here in a small role as always. The movie feels more restrained when compared to Aliens in regard to the action. Sure, there is some action, but it tries to be more in line with the first movie, landing somewhere between in the end. Unfortunately, we don't have here an action-packed showdown in which 100 aliens are being killed, like in Alien Romulus or Aliens. The way the alien dies is still pretty much a letdown, I would say, and the end overall feels like a letdown as well, at least for me, even though they have some interesting things set up. As I said, the movie has also some pacing issues. There are long stretches of boring in between the pretty well made and surprisingly bloody alien scenes. I have to say, this year is probably the most violent alien movie not counting AVP 2. We see how heads are punched through with the alien's small mouth, people getting thrown into giant vents and so on. Which is actually kind of cool but doesn't really save the movie. We do get also a tiny bit of world building by looking at the prison system in the alien world. Alien 3 could have been a better follow-up, I think. Maybe the vision which Fincher originally had would have been better, but we will never see what he had in mind at this point in time. The assembly cut isn't quite salvaging the movie, but comes closer to what was intended, I think. The theatrical cut is probably more of a complete story, even though there are also missing parts, which become even more obvious when you have watched the assembly cut. Like the crazy guy who just disappears in the theatrical cut, same goes for Holt's character. So both cuts have their missing parts, as I already said. It doesn't get to the level of Alien or Aliens, the backgrounds are probably more interesting than the movie itself, but it's not a complete failure. It's still directed by David Fincher, it still has a solid cast, and mostly good effects despite its flaws, and it's still very much watchable. It's a bit like Alien Romulus, in that you wonder what it could have been, and you're a bit frustrated by some of the flaws, as you can see a good idea. A good movie through all its issues, and I will give Alien 3 a 6 out of 10.
These were very, very hard to come by.
Maybe it would have been a good idea to stop the franchise right here, or to reboot it, but despite reaching its logical conclusion, we still have another sequel with Ripley and even more movies which serve as prequels. So next up, we will take a look at my probably least favorite movie in the series, Alien Resurrection. And we all know that movies with resurrection in the title are usually the bottom of the barrel, and I'm not looking forward to this one. Oh god, I was not looking forward to this one. Alien Resurrection is for me personally the low point of the Alien franchise. The absolute, definitive low point. Even counting the Aliens vs Predator movies, even when including all the Predator movies, which also had two stinkers. It's even worse than the Aliens games I played, and I played Aliens Colonial Marines. After the pretty much definitive end to Ellen Ripley's character in Alien 3, we witness her return, as she was cloned. Oh, sorry, had a spelling mistake here. I meant cloned. Not only she has been cloned, the alien that infected her was also cloned and cut out of her. Brad Dourif is experimenting on the aliens and Ripley is being studied. Eventually the aliens escape in a really stupid sequence and the ship is being boarded by some space pirates led by Ron Perlman. And that in another sequence which is really dumb. What follows is a nonsensical fight against the aliens for survival, and against some of the crew of the ship. This was as bad as I remembered, maybe even worse. If this wouldn't be an Alien movie, it could have been okay, but it is part of the Alien movies and just fucking sucks at that. The aliens are not threatening, the action is stupid, the acting is at times atrocious. They often go for comedy which just feels awkward and out of place. The action is ridiculous and nothing like any of the previous movies, or even the later movies I think. We have a lot of stars here though, like Sigourney Weaver of course, the always great Brad Dourif, who gets way too little screen time here. There's also Winona Ryder, Ron Perlman, that one guy from that CSI series, that guy from Seven and a couple of French guys. The director is also a French guy who directed some almost fantasy-like quirky movies like Amélie. The script came from Joss Whedon, and while Whedon can write some horror movies, he always has to put some comedy and witty dialogue into it. And with those two creatives put together, the end result had to be terrible, to be honest. None of it works. It feels so much like something else, while also hitting the cliches of the series. Once again, someone tries to capture the alien for a super weapon project, and there are badasses, or more so wannabe badasses, which are packing some serious artillery who are completely overwhelmed once the aliens appear, and several factions on different sides who have to work together to survive. But it feels just like crazy characters being together doing nonsense. Even the aliens feel stupid and not like in the previous movies. They are not the scary lurking predators trying to surprise their prey. No, they just walk somewhere where they can clearly be seen or just stand in hallways while space pirates are not shooting at them. What happened here? Did the AI of the alien break? The effects are also a mixed bag. They have some very well put together alien heads which are pretty badly put into the scenes most of the time, which makes them often look like puppets. Which they are, but in the other Alien movies you get immersed enough to see the aliens as aliens. The CGI is also pretty bad and the picture quality itself is also not good. Maybe that's because I watched the special edition, but I think it's in general bad. It is a really misguided movie and I don't know how or why they meddled so much with David Fincher's movie, but let this happen. It's just baffling. There are also these weird kind of esoteric and kind of homoerotic scenes between Ripley and Winona, which are just odd and nonsensical. It feels like they tried to give Ripley's character some motherly gestures as well, that are just weird and out of place, and she only reacts like that to Winona and her own offspring, which is just stupid. We also get to see a new alien type eventually, a human xenomorph hybrid, which looks just weird and can be either disturbing or laughable depending on how you perceive it. But even when you see it as scary at first, Once that thing is sucked out of the spaceship in one of the worst scenes of the entire franchise, you probably just laugh or just hold your head at the misery you just witnessed. Alien Resurrection is a complete disaster, a Hollywood train wreck like you rarely see. The movie probably has its fans, but I can't really see why, at least if you know any of the other Alien movies or media. It completely derailed the franchise, leading into a series of attempts to reboot the franchise with AVP, the Ridley Scott attempts at the franchise, and the latest Fede Alvarez movie. It killed the character of Ripley more than the ending of Alien 3 did, and ended her character arc in the movies and degraded her future appearances to video game cameos. And that's probably for the best, as this thoroughly derailed the franchise for a while. I really don't like this movie, and while I see hardly any positives, I don't want to bash anyone who likes the movie. If you like it, more power to you, but it's not for me, and with that said, I will give Alien Resurrection a 2 out of 10. The director also said any people who don't like his movie, he can just say fuck you to them. To which I can only say fuck you right back and stay the fuck away from horror. And next time I will watch another Alien movie I didn't like that much. Prometheus.
I thought you were dead.
Yeah, I get that a lot.